today's video is going to be about the murder of 5-year-old April Jones in 2012. Now, this takes place in Wales in October, and her family moved into the area in 2007, and about a week or two after they moved there, April was born 7 weeks premature. Now, April's a little fighter, and after a little bit of time in the prenatal unit, they were able to bring her home. Unfortunately, she had a form of cerebral palsy, and this really affected her mobility. Walking was really painful for her. So she was born into a family of mum Coral, dad Paul, older sister Jasmine and older brother Harley. Her family said that she absolutely loved going to the beach, and that she was dead bubbly, and that she ruled the roost, which the baby of the family often does. Now her mum said that they used to call her Little the Owl, and that means little devil, and that's not because she was naughty. She was just dead mischievous, like a lot of little 5-year-old girls. Now, like I said, her mobility was impacted, so a way of getting around a lot more independently was the use of a bike. Now, her family said she took this bike everywhere, and it gave her so much independence of the family. She didn't have to wait to be picked up or for them to be ready to go anywhere. She could just get on a little bike and she was fine. Now, on the morning, well, in the afternoon time of the 1st of October, it was a Monday, and April had swimming lessons. Now, her sister Jasmine took her, and everything was fine. It was all normal. She brought her home. She had spaghetti on toast for the tea, which when I was a kid I loved spaghetti on toast. Specifically like the little Heinz little shapes. I just thought, oh, she's just a typical little girl. Now, her sister Jasmine hugged her and kissed her goodbye and said, "I'm going to the youth club and I'll see you when I get back. I love you." And April said, "I love you, I'll see you later." Now, when Jasmine went, April asked her mum if she could play out. She had little friends who lived nearby, and she weren't gone too long, but by 7:30 she still weren't back. So around this time a 999 call goes in, and her mum is speaking, but she's absolutely she's just hyperventilating. She can't talk, and she says to a friend, "Can you talk?" And a friend comes on the phone and says to the operator, "We've got a 5-year-old little girl missing. She's gone in a car, and her name's April Jones. She's 5. Now, DC Louise Thomas was the first one to the house, and she said that when she got there it was just pure chaos, which it will be. There was a witness, April's little friend who was 7. She had said to the police that April got into the car willingly and she was happy and smiley when she did it. Now, this is really important to remember. The search for April Jones was one of the biggest in Britain's history. It was absolutely massive. So the search on the Monday night, they're searching for April, and there's just no sign of her anywhere. On Tuesday the 2nd of October, the search obviously picks up where it left off and continues. Now, DS Andy John is brought in to lead the investigation. Now, he's like a renowned investigator. So he's leading the investigation. Now, this 7-year-old witness says that the car was small at the front and bigger at the back, and the police were thinking, well, maybe it's some sort of Land Rover or something. It also turns out that the 7-year-old little girl also says of April getting into the car that she got in the driver's side. Now, this didn't make any sense to the police, but then they thought, well, maybe she means it's a left-hand drive. So a call comes in on the Tuesday saying that there's a man in the area called Mark Bridger, and he's got access to a Land Rover, and it's a left-hand drive. So the police are thinking, right, we desperately need to bring this man in to be questioned. So Mark Bridger was a handyman. He was 46 at the time. He was a father of 6, and he had a girlfriend, but he had apparently just broke up with her. Now, Coral says that he knew April because he had been at the school when she was picking April up, and he was at the school picking his girlfriend's kids up. And people also said that they seen him in the area where April was taken on the Monday night. He was there. So at 1:20 on the Tuesday, the police are like, right, go and get him, go and bring him in. So the police arrive at Mark's house and it's empty. He isn't there, but it smells of like cleaning products, and the fire was blazing as well. Now at 3:32, a patrol car is just doing its rounds and spots Mark Bridger walking on the road and bring him in. Now he's taken to a police station 20 miles away to be questioned. When he got there, the police officer said that he was really calm, cool, collected, emotionless. Now if I was brought into a police station for questioning and I hadn't done nothing, I would be effing and jeffing. I'd be fuming. So when he gets to the police station, his clothes are seized and he is swabbed. Now, something else of note is 5 hours before he was brought in, so that would have been about 9:30 in the morning, a police helicopter looking for April spots Mark, and he's walking his dog. Now, they note this because the police say that typically people look up at them, and he specifically kept his head down and he did not look up. And I find this weird because in Liverpool, where I live, like, the police helicopter's out daily, and even though it's like an everyday occurrence, I still look up. I still look to see where it might be hovering or if it's over. I hate it when it's over my house. I'm thinking, oh God. So this was noted by the police as weird. So nearly 24 hours has passed and the police conduct what's called an urgent interview. Now the danger of this is that there's no solicitor present, and it's like a preservation of life interview because they need to find this little girl. Now Mark Bridger says that he doesn't know where she is, and that on the Monday night he'd been to his daughter's school because she had a parents' evening, and he'd had a few drinks and then he'd parked up near his girlfriend's house in his car drinking. Now there's a statement analyst called Peter Hyatt, and he says that if someone admits to some form of criminality to the police, like I was drink driving, what they're actually guilty of will be 10 times worse. So Mark then goes on to say that bear in mind he's just said he was drink driving. Now he goes on to say that he did see 2 little girls on bikes, and that he claimed that he actually had ran one of them over, and that she'd went under his car, and that there weren't a thud, but, and then he says that, you know, the front of his car rose up a bit. He said that he got out and under the car was April. So now we've got him admitting to drink driving and knocking over the little girl. He said that he picked it up and he put her in his car. Then he says that he put his mouth over her mouth and blew, which is such a weird way of phrasing it. Like, it's just creepy the way he says it. I know I'm biased because he is pure creep, but he then says that he felt for the pulse and there was no pulse, and that he went to do chest compressions but their chest had caved in. So obviously the police go and seize his car. Now he says that with April in the car, he takes the back roads, and he did intend on getting medical help. And he went down by a railway station. He then said that she turned purple and he had killed her. So he's admitting that he was drink driving and he hit this little girl and he killed her. But then the story becomes really, really vague. Because he says, all of a sudden I was just back in my house and she weren't there. I must have put her somewhere, is what he says. And then the police said that he was visibly crying tears, but there was nothing. He was just vacant. At 18:45 p.m, the interview is ended. Now, the police do continue to search at this point, and they find at the nearby petrol station, they get the CCTV footage, and minutes after April's taken, they see his car shooting past. On the Wednesday, 36 hours into her disappearance, the police and April's mum holds a press conference. In this press conference, April's mum just she's crying, but it's like gut-wrenching to watch. It is like the most painful cry. I can't imagine what she was going through that day and that day since. Now, after the press conference, the police continue to probe Mark's story. That, you know, he ran it over. So, as I said before, the 7-year-old witness completely contradicts this. She doesn't mention anything about an accident. She says that she happily and willingly, smiley, gets into the car of her own accord. He doesn't help her one bit. Now, the police tell Mark this. They say, we've got a witness who contradicts this completely. And Mark becomes really angry. And he says stuff like, it's fabricated and it's lies and it can't have happened. Which is, again, weird, because you wouldn't say it can't have happened. You'd say it didn't happen like that. So yeah, he says it can't have happened. And then he says it happened exactly how I told you it happened. Really aggressive, like. And then he says, go away and do the tests on the car. I, at this point, would have punched him, which is another reason why I'm not a police officer. So the forensics man is called Roderick Stewart, and he examines the car, and he does say that the front bumper is broke, but that it's an old brake. It's not recent at all. He then says that under the car, Mark said April went right under. Roderick says that there's no blood, there's no skin, there's no fibres from her clothes, there's no DNA, there's nothing under that car to say that April was under that car. There's just absolutely nothing that backed up his story. So again, at this point, the police still have not given up hope of finding this little girl. And right by Mark Bridges' house there was a river, so you know they thoroughly searched this river, and again there's just no sign of April. So what the police do, they play into Mark's little game, and they give him maps saying, look, can you look at these maps and see if it jogs your memory about where you might have left her or took her, or what route you might have took before you went to your house. And he's saying that, you know, he definitely would not have buried her, but that he might have covered her from the rain. And then he said, it's hopeless, I don't know where she is. So the police bring in a criminal forensic psychologist, Joe Sullivan, and he worked on the Soham and the Maddie McCann cases. And he gathers information about Mark, and you know, he says that Mark used to work in an abattoir, which is a slaughterhouse. In his house there was loads of SAS survival books. Now, a lot of cases focus on what books somebody has and draws a personality from that, but like, I've got books on all sorts of stuff, and I'd be screwed if the police ever accuse me of something, because my books paint a bad picture. In his house there was also a gun, a rifle above his fireplace. There was 2 pairs of handcuffs just openly lying around. The psychologist says that Mark lives in a fantasy world, because he'd tell people that like he used to be in the special forces, and he weren't. Now Joe says to the police, don't appeal to his paternal side, because you know, he's a dad of 6, but the police ignore this, and this is exactly what the police do, and it doesn't work, because it just doesn't. You know, he says that he's got psychopathic traits. So at 10 o'clock that night, the police are interviewing him, and he asks if she's been found. And you know, he goes on to say, look, if I knew where she was, I'd tell you, but she's definitely not alive. And then he starts crying, and then that's it really. That's as much as they really get from him. He's sticking to the story. So by the Thursday, 44 police forces are now searching for April, and the Prime Minister at the time, David Cameron, does an interview, a media appeal, asking, you know, begging for anyone with information to come forward that this little girl needs to be home. So the forensics team are searching his house, and they find a few tiny specks of blood inside the bathroom and his living room, and it would take 24 hours to get the results. The police then go and question Mark again, because at this point they're still waiting to see if the CPS are going to press charges. Now the CPS in the UK is the Crown Prosecution Service. It also comes to light that someone says on the Tuesday morning, Mark Bridger was seen carrying a black bin bag. This was never found. Mark continues to say, you know, I don't know where she is. I'm looking at these maps and they're just not helping. And the psychologist says that, you know, he's got no guilt about this whatsoever. And that there's just no point in the police trying to appeal to his better nature because he hasn't got one. But keeping him talking was key. On the Thursday, Andy John arrests Mark Bridger officially with murder. Now, Mark thought that they'd found her, and he hadn't. But they had found indecent images on his laptop, and now the police have a sexual motive for the crime. At this point on the Thursday, the police have given up hope of finding April alive and tell the family that, you know, April's gone. Now, members of the public since the Monday had been out searching for her, and the police tell them to stop searching and that specialist teams would be taken over. They didn't want members of the public coming across a body. People were absolutely broken. You know, the news footage, it's just people hugging. It's just people hugging and crying, and because they all know, they know she's dead. So at this point, there's still not enough evidence to charge Mark Bridger. And he created this whole facade since the moment he brought him in that, you know, he was good and that he was helping them as much as he could, and it was just all a game to him. He was trying to run the clock down. On the Friday, the search was expanded to 600 areas. Now, in Wales, it's a difficult terrain. There's loads of mountains and hills and mines and caves. And April was really little. She'd be really easy to conceal. The police at this point say to Mark Bridger, in the car, there was no blood, skin, hair to back up his story. There was no evidence under the vehicle to back up the story that he had ran her over. So Mark Bridger says, no, this is important. He says himself that there was no blood or traces of blood when he picked it up and put it in the car. She weren't bleeding whatsoever. No blood. So the blood spots in his bathroom and in the living room are compared to DNA taken from a toothbrush belonging to April, and unfortunately it was a match. Blood was found on the inside of Mark Bridger's fleece on the neck area, and April's DNA was found inside his jogging bottoms. So I think at one point he is undressed with April. On the Friday, the police print off the images from his laptop, the child sexual images, and they present them to Mark. And he says that they don't make him feel sexual whatsoever. There's nothing sexual about these images. Now, I'm not going to detail these images, but they are sexual in nature. There's images of children being violently assaulted and sexually assaulted. but he insists that, you know, he's there's nothing sexual about the images. In his search history, he was searching child murders and child abuse. He was definitely sexually interested in little kids. So the custody clock was 96 hours, and by the Friday it was nearly up. So there's one last interview, and the police want to challenge his entire story about all the information that they've gathered next to his story. And they tell him that April got into the car willingly, and there's no evidence of a road accident. There's no DNA, no blood, no hair. And that there's April's blood is found inside Mark Bridges' house, and DNA and blood found on his clothes. When he's told about the blood, now bear in mind, he said that, oh, well, there wouldn't be any blood because there weren't any blood when I put it in the car, she weren't bleeding. Now that he's been told that they have found blood, he then says, oh, do you know what it must have been? There must have been a bit of blood on my hands, and I've gone to my toilet and had a wee. And then when I've gone to wash my hands to dry them, I must have done that. And the blood on my hands must have flew onto the wall. I just want to slap him at this point. That is what he says. So then they say, but there was no blood apparently. And then the police say, well, was April attacked inside your bathroom? And he says no. The police then say, well, there's evidence of a sexual interest in children. And he says no. Then the police say, was you masturbating to these images? Because they can see when he's clicked on them, and it looks like he's clicking on them, and they think that he was masturbating whilst looking at these images. Mark says no, there was no sexual assault of April. And then the police say, was a sharp weapon used? And Mark says no. And then the police say, did you suffocate April? And he says no. And then the police say, you don't want her body to be found because we'll know exactly what you've done to her. And then he's like, no. And then he apologises to her family and says, no, I crushed the body with my car. Remember what I said before about Peter Hyatt? If you admit to one thing, what you're covering up is 10 times worse. So he's admitting to drink driving and killing a 5-year-old kid with his car. There's no evidence of this. When in fact, he's a paedophile who raped and murdered this little girl, in my opinion. The CPS at this point says charge him. So 3 counts are brought against them, and they are murder, abduction and perverting the course of justice. 7 days following April being taken, so this is the Monday, he appeared in court, and you know, the nation was so angry. He then appeared in Mold Crown Court later on, and he was given a life sentence. Now the judge in the case says that you are a pathological liar and a paedophile. Coral says that she still can't go into her bedroom to sort out her stuff. It's just too much. I'll put some screenshots of what Coral says in a victim impact statement. Now the police believe that April was attacked in Mark Bridges' house and probably dismembered, and her body parts scattered around Wales. Inside the fireplace they found fragments of a child's skull. Apparently he hasn't had a good time in prison, which I'm happy about. He lives in fear, so he should. That little baby girl would have been terrified in the last few moments on this earth with that monster, so I don't give two craps about his welfare in prison. He's been slashed. It's a shame that they couldn't. I hate how they're protected in prison. I hate it. This was just a devastating case. The family did have a funeral for April. They never found a body or any of a body, but they still had a funeral, and it's little kids' funerals always get me. Her funeral was lovely, pink, pretty, cute, just like her. There's like a little memorial by her estate where she lived. I'll insert a picture. It's just a devastating case. Devastating. This little 5-year-old had her whole life stolen. Anyway, if you want more videos like this, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.